Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Empowered Marriage Podcast. My name is Helen Harrison. I'm a relationship and personal growth specialist, and I love talking about marriage. And this is episode 130, and what is emotional safety? So before we dive into that, this podcast is all about creating healthy, happy relationships. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to be in a relationship where they feel fulfilled, where they feel seen, where they feel heard? And you can create that. It takes energy and time from both parties to be able to do that. And when you can do that, you then feel so much more connected as a couple. So the Empowered Marriage Podcast is all about relationships, love, and marriage, and being able to communicate and to be able to connect and really come from a place of authenticity. So this podcast, I tap into lots of different topics. Today's topic is a goodie: why we stop feeling emotionally safe. So would you say it's pretty important? Because when you feel emotionally safe, you then, you can be yourself. You can be authentic. You can share your thoughts, your feelings. You can share your inner world. You know that your partner's got your back, and that in itself is a great feeling. You also know that you can disagree. You can have conflict, but you still feel connected. And you know how to repair. So emotional safety, I believe, is massive. It is a foundation of a relationship, and it's really, really important to have it. The more I'm sort of sitting with this and I'm having a chat with you about it, it is really recognizing how important emotional safety is. Emotional safety is knowing that even if life gets pretty tough, pretty hard, you're both still on the same team. In fact, I'm going to repeat that. Emotional safety is knowing that even when life gets hard, because it does, you're still on the same team. And emotional safety often looks quite different for women and for men. So I want to speak into that first. So for women, emotional safety is they feel heard. They feel validated. They feel emotionally connected. They know that you're consistent, that you're going to turn up. You will do what you say you're going to do. You're going to be home at 6 o'clock. You'll be home at 6 o'clock. You're going to cook lunch on Sunday at 1 o'clock. You're going to do that. Emotional safety for women, they know that their man has got their back. When they're out with other people, they know that their man or woman has got their back. And so emotional safety is vital. It's also, when you have emotional safety, you know that you are important to your partner. So the question that I've heard over the years working with women is, can I rely on you emotionally? And that looks like you holding the container for your woman to express from the heart and express her emotions. You don't have to fix it. You don't need to put your fix-it hat on. You don't have to mend it or come up with any sort of solution. It's to hold that container for the emotions. So that is what emotional safety is for women. So emotional safety for men is quite different. For men, I feel accepted. I don't feel criticised or nagged. And I bring that up because I hear that a lot. Men feel criticised, they feel nagged. And I won't get into the reasons behind it, but when men are feeling emotionally safe in a relationship, there's not a lot of that. Men also know that they can make mistakes and they won't be shamed for it. There is that container of safety. Men also, they know when there's emotional safety that they can be vulnerable. And for a lot of men, it is really difficult for men to be vulnerable. They were taught from a young age to park the emotions away. Don't be a girl, don't be a crybaby. So you weren't encouraged or supported or even role modelled how to be with emotions and to express them and have them out and be with that. So it is quite different for men. Emotional safety for men often is they feel respected, they feel appreciated, and they also know that their partner believes in them. So the question, which I have heard a fair bit over the years, is, am I enough for you? So can you see the difference between emotional safety for women and for men? It's quite extraordinary how different it is. And the truth is, although emotional safety can look different, we're all asking the same questions, aren't we, when you think about it? Men and women. So person, doesn't matter about what sex you are. Am I safe with you? Can I trust you? And do I matter? Will you be there for me? They're big questions. They may not be voiced, but inside yourself, you may think it or you may feel it. And it's something that you are constantly attending to and building over and over again. So 3 warning signs that emotional safety is disappearing is you begin protecting yourself instead of actually connecting. You're perhaps noticing that you stop bringing things up. You stop talking about things. You just want to keep the peace. You avoid the difficult conversations. You walk on eggshells. You're hypervigilant, just checking out the mood as to how much you say or don't say. And you often think, oh, it'd just be easier not to say anything at all. You also stop asking for what you need. And I suppose the key message that I'm trying to express here, silence isn't always peace. It really isn't. Sometimes it is self-protection. Because what's sad is when your partner no longer invites you into your inner world. Your inner world is what creates that emotional safety, that emotional connection. And when there is emotional distance, it just quietly grows. Your partner no longer knows what you're worrying about, what you're thinking about, what you're dreaming about, what you're grieving about. Your partner doesn't know actually what you're struggling with, what your fears are, and instead you begin sharing those parts of yourself with other people. So, it could be friends, work colleagues, other family members, your therapist, and sometimes strangers online. Something I do want to express, I'm not saying don't have friends and have people in your world that you share with. I'm not saying that to not have that. I think it's very, very important, to have a tribe and you get different things from different people. But there is no relationship like your intimate relationship. There really isn't. And when there is emotional distance, it begins to grow. It just does. I've seen it. I've experienced it myself in my 30-year marriage relationship. And so I know what it's like. And the moment your partner no longer feels like it's a safe place to be able to share their inner world, so whether it's female or male, emotional disconnection has already begun. And it's if you're listening to this and you've kept with me, there's obviously something there that you are worried about, that you're concerned about, you're not feeling as close, and perhaps you have stopped sharing your inner world with your partner, and that can be quite confronting. So I want to talk now about emotional safety and how it is built. It isn't built in just a few big grand gestures. It's built with consistency, turning up. It's the small moments of following through, keeping your word, being reliable. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're going to be somewhere, do it. It's also showing up emotionally, to be able to talk about your inner world. When you perhaps are stressed or you've got anxiety and you've got stuff going on, do you shut down a bit? Do you get walled off? Do you withdraw? Do you not let your partner close? Do you not let them in? So it's really important to begin noticing that inside of yourself, what is going on in your inner world, because it is the small moments. It's also knowing how to repair. How do you repair after conflict? How do you perhaps create predictability? It's all the little habits, the little sequences that you have as a couple. Does one of you make a coffee for each other in the morning? Does one of you get the TV on for you both to sit down in the evening? It's just the little taps, or, the Gottmans call it the bids for connection. It's all of these consistent little steps. So I now want to talk about two really practical ways to rebuild emotional safety. Number one is learning how to process conflict. Vital. You are going to have conflict. So in a healthy relationship, we have connection, disconnection, and repair. And when you're in disconnect, how quickly do you get into repair? Do you stay in disconnect for a few hours, a few days? That's not healthy. That is not going to help you rebuild emotional safety, because the longer you are in disconnect, the more repair work you have to do. Dinner party, you might go through connection, disconnection, and repair 3 times in that dinner party. Or during a day, you may go through that cycle a couple of times in a day. This is part of being in an adult, intimate relationship. You're going to go through this. You're going to have conflict. But if you don't know how to process it, it gets swept under the rug. It doesn't get aired. It doesn't get healed. It doesn't get moved, transcended, whatever name you want to give it. But it gets just put away inside you. And then till next time. And then you'll be able to bring in evidence as to all the little bits of resentment, and this is why. So none of this is going to help rebuild emotional safety. So that's the first thing I want to say, is that all couples argue. Well, it's healthy actually to argue. There are couples who don't, but you will have a heap of resentment inside because you haven't expressed it. Anyway, we're not talking about that couple. We're talking about learning how to process conflict. Healthy couples don't avoid conflict. If you are a avoidant of conflict, that'll be due to what you've lived. That's for you to look at and to transcend that, because it's very important that you know how to process conflict. Learning how to repair. So instead of, say, becoming defensive or blaming, or you got to win at no cost, at any cost, is being able to practice listening. learning how to be curious, validating, taking responsibility, repairing. This is the work that I do with couples, because often we've got some really outdated coping mechanisms. We haven't learned how to do repair. So it's really important that you do that and take responsibility to do that. And you can't do that individually on your own. There's you, there's your partner, and then there's an us, a we, a relationship, which takes for both of you to put energy into it. So if you want to rebuild emotional safety, you both have to learn how to repair, and you both have to learn how to do conflict effectively. I don't think conflict destroys relationships. I think poor repair does, because you hang on to it and you keep it, because I did. I know I did, and I got sick because I hung on to all the resentment, because I was sort of on eggshells and didn't want to do conflict. Well, no, that's the key message. It is important to do conflict, but it's how you do the repair. So questions to ask yourself is, what happened for me? So when you do have a disconnect, what happened? What did it mean to me? And then perhaps what did you need from me? So this is questions to ask, but there's lots of different ways to do repair, and but I think a huge thing is listen, be curious, validate, learning how to take responsibility to bring in that repair. The second point I want to make is sharing your inner world. Yes, men, sharing your inner world. And I'm talking to you because women do it. Because I don't want to say that they're always more emotional, because they're not, but women do tend to share their inner world. Because if you can share your inner world, you also will take responsibility for your triggers. So instead of blaming, say along the lines, okay, so instead of blaming, asking some questions. Okay, when that happened, blah, 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 or I noticed, or it triggered me. So when we take responsibilities, I noticed that was a trigger for me. It was really similar, like when I was like 10 years old, and it just sort of touched on it, and that's why I got triggered. Or, I noticed that I got really impatient when you told me what to do. And so it's owning your story, it's owning your part in it. Or this is what I need. I found it really difficult when you didn't have time to discuss what we were talking about earlier. So, these are just examples, but it's so important not to blame. And when you can own your story, what this does is it invites connection. And you can't expect your partner to mind read you, because they can't. It's just impossible. But this is how emotional intimacy grows, is taking responsibility. If you've been impatient, if you've been frustrated, if you've got angry, you're human. But when you can learn from it, and when you can share that with your partner, that you've been able to get to that place because there's a softness inside of you. Harshness is not going to help any relationship. And how you express this with your partner is also really important. Your tone, you're actually embodying it and feeling it. It's not just words. I was out of line this morning. I got really impatient with you, and I was telling you what to do, and that's not on. I'm going to try harder to not do that. This is what taking responsibility looks like. Look, I could keep talking on about this topic. It's a big one, but emotional safety, it isn't built by perfection. It's built by trust, reliability, consistency, honesty, and repair. The Gottmans talk about turning towards each other. So even if you're in the thick of it, of course, at times you need to take time out. That'll be a conversation for another day, but learning how to do time out effectively, but turning towards each other so you feel emotionally safe. And this isn't something that you just do for a week and then let it go. This is daily, consistent, moment by moment, being able to communicate more openly. And because if you can do this, you're going to trust. You'll trust more deeply. You will be more vulnerable. You'll have a greater connection. Because, at the end of the day, we're all asking the same question, aren't we? Is it safe for me to be fully myself with you? That's what we're all asking. And, for some of us who have come from trauma, there's a lot that question is loaded, because you may have been a chameleon and learned not to be yourself. So to have emotional safety and to be able to be fully yourself is a beautiful thing. So anyway, I could continue to talk about this subject, but I'm going to finish up. Look, you've been listening to the Empowered Marriage Podcast, and if you have found any of this helpful, I'd really encourage you to subscribe and perhaps leave a review. Share it with someone else who could benefit, because all of this helps other people, other couples, find some hope and build stronger, healthier, more fulfilled relationships. Anyway, for more relationship resources, you can go to my website. Also book a relationship assessment if you'd like to really sort of get where you're at. You can do all of this on my website, powerofchange.com.au. And, until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. And remember, that life has its ups and downs. And I thrive on helping relationships thrive, one couple at a time. See you next time.